Senator John McCain will be laid to rest sometime today in the cemetery at the U.S. Naval Academy, next to his very good friend and fellow classmate, Admiral Chuck Larson. They were classmates at the U.S. Naval Academy, graduating, I think, 1958, I think it was. And very much unlike John McCain, Chuck Larson was near the top of his class. No demerits, squeaky clean, always by the book. John McCain, if you don't know, out of a class of 899, graduated 894th, fifth from the bottom, with a host of demerits. He was always bucking the system, flying by his own rules, but never lying, never cheating, and never being cruel to anyone. But he was wild. In fact, not only was John McCain, wild when he was at the Naval Academy, his father also graduated from the Naval Academy, also with a host of demerits, near the bottom of his class, and also very wild. John McCain's grandfather, ditto. A wild, a fun, a rambunctious, a rowdy bunch of soldiers. In fact, Chuck Larson, Admiral Chuck Larson, next to whom John McCain will soon be laid, was John McCain's wingman at the Naval Academy. I'm assuming both at bars when they would go out, and perhaps even at the academy itself if there was a fight. Chuck Larson said this about John McCain, about being John McCain's wingman. Chuck Larson said, "It was tough. It was really tough to be John McCain's wingman. It was really tough after midnight." John McCain kept that tough wingman personality throughout his entire 35 years as a U.S. congressperson. President George W. Bush, from his own party, said, he could frustrate me. He was honest, no matter whom he offended. Senator Russ Feingold, with whom John McCain partnered to make the very famous McCain-Feingold Campaign Finance Reform Bill of 2002, Russ Feingold said, being with John McCain could be a lot of hard work, but it was almost always fun. Hard work, but always fun. In fact, Feingold tells a story. One time they were at New Orleans for a conference, and there was a full day of meetings and negotiations and deals trying to get the reform bill to have enough sponsors and to build support for it down in New Orleans. All day they worked. Nighttime came, late night. Finally, Russ Feingold is able to go to bed. John McCain, 17 years older than Feingold, guess where he's at? New Orleans. Where's he at? He's partying. He's not on Bourbon Street or down there somewhere. He's at Harrah's at the tables, gambling and having fun. It's tougher after midnight. The disciples around Jesus Christ knew this. They knew that it was tougher to be around Jesus Christ, and it was especially tougher after midnight to do what Jesus Christ needed them to do. They got into that little boat, or that medium-sized fishing boat, however big it was. They got into that boat like shortly after dinner time, after 6 p.m., maybe 7, maybe 8 o'clock. They got into this boat. Then they start rowing across the northern part of the Sea of Galilee. One of the Gospels says that it was like 3 or 4 miles into rowing against a hard wind, against the waves battering their boat. And way past midnight, they are still fighting against prevailing forces. Maybe you have a prevailing force in your life. In fact, I'm going to probably gather we all have a prevailing force in our life against which we have to battle. Your battle might not be my battle. My battle is probably not your battle. As many people that are in here, we probably have independent or individual battles against which we are fighting. It gets harder after midnight. And for those disciples, rowing the course of Jesus Christ was harder. And Jesus Christ did not come and help them immediately after midnight. Jesus waited until the 4th watch, 3 o'clock in the morning at the earliest. The person who will be laid to rest today knew that same fight, knew the harder after midnight fight. From all of the eulogies and articles that have been written and given about John McCain, we all now know that he spent about 5.5 years as a prisoner of war in Hanoi. He was a fighter pilot, an A-4 Skyhawk. He was shot down by a Russian missile. According to John McCain, the size of a telephone pole, took off the right wing of his airplane, plummeted him into a near vertical strop. He ejects from that, loses consciousness, lands in a lake with 50 pounds of gear strapped to him. Not only 2 broken arms and a broken leg, 2 shattered arms, each broken in 2 or 3 places, and a shattered leg. That leaves him 1 good leg to swim up. He finally struggles enough to swim up, is dragged to shore by North Vietnamese, and attacked by a mob. Someone bayonets him in the foot, and someone else rams a rifle butt on one of his shoulders. Bear in mind, both arms are shattered. Immediately after this, he's dragged to a torture chamber where he's tortured for 4 hours. And John McCain knows that all he has to say is one thing, and all of this will come to a stop. My father is Admiral John McCain, commander of all U.S. forces in Vietnam from 1968 to 72. Yes, this was 1967, so he's not yet U.S. commander of all Vietnam forces. He's a high-ranking officer, though. The pain would have immediately stopped. John McCain said no. Once they did find out who John McCain was, because they did find out, once they did find out, they tried operating. They tried to fix John McCain because now he's important. He can't die. Botched operation after botched operation. During one of the operations, they were trying to fix his leg, the one leg that was all shattered, and they sliced the tendons in his knee accidentally. During another operation, one of the poorly trained doctors, not the doctor's fault, by the way, don't blame the North Vietnamese, blame the government of the North Vietnamese, okay? This poorly trained doctor is trying to set McCain's bones on one of his arms. For an hour and a half, he's trying to get it all worked in there, and John McCain has no anesthesia whatsoever And he's just watching this North Vietnamese doctor setting his bones and failing. And oh, by the way, John McCain. And they actually called him, I think, McCain. McCain, we will let you go. Your father is an admiral. We will let you go. We all know the story. John McCain said no. For two reasons, John McCain said no. One is that the North Vietnamese would use his release as a propaganda tool, which would hurt, in John McCain's mind, the Vietnam effort. Say what you will about the Vietnam War. John McCain had a singular purpose, and that was the betterment of this country. Right or wrong in his opinion, his heart was in the right place. The second reason he would not do this is because it was not fair. I was not the first one captured. Those men over there were here before I was. Let them go free first. But John McCain, your father, you have privilege. You are more important than any of them. We will let you free. No. John McCain stayed, willingly stayed in hell to be with the men who were captured before him and captured after him. John McCain became their chaplain. John McCain was their entertainment officer. John McCain lifted their spirits simply by shouting obscenities at the North Vietnamese captors, loud enough so that everyone else in prison could hear him fight against the forces that prevail. John McCain knew he was lifting his fellow captors' spirits. The disciples who rowed across the Sea of Galilee knew this same fight. They weren't always strong in the faith. They were intensely afraid in the boat. And even Peter, when he got out of the boat and the wind blew even stronger, even Peter worried. And the disciples who were in prison in the story that Enoch read from Acts put themselves in harm's way after being rescued from prison by an angel, because the angel said, go back. Go back to where it is dangerous. Go back to the public square. Go back and do what is unpopular. Because following Jesus Christ is tough. Following Jesus Christ after midnight is even tougher. Being John McCain's wingman was a tough job. It got tougher after midnight. And being a follower of Jesus Christ is also tough. And whatever is your version of midnight, it will often get tougher. I pray that the forces that prevail against you and against us never get the better of us. May we all follow the power and strength of Jesus Christ. Amen.